So we're going to do a country road to take me home. From here in Millersburg, we're going to drive back through to Tower City on Route 209 mainly. We'll actually go through Likens into Tower City, near a couple other towns, I think, potentially. But that's the Susquehanna River. Such a neat place. So much history here, and so much family history with the Walborn side of the family. But yeah, so I'll make sure I turn on the right road here. I think it's this one here. Yeah. Sorry about that. I was going to quick stop by the rail station. And yep, this is the right one. So we'll get to see the center of town as well, which is pretty neat. Once again, there's the Millersburg rail station, built in 1898. And make sure I'm in drive, and I am. Let's go chug up the hill. Chuck can prove his manliness. Let's make a quick left here. I just want to do this because I want to see if I can find. There is another station, or what looks like a station. So I want to just quick check, and I was originally going to be like, the heck with it. But you know what? If there is one, we'll quick check that out. I always love wind chimes. My Aunt Ruth used to have a bunch of those. She used to feed the birds too, and I used to love listening to our wind chimes out on our porch. It just sounded so pretty. Yeah, this is it right here. I really don't. At least it's made to look like it's can't enter there, so we gotta go back around. But that very much looks like that's some kind. It's probably like a trying to think what they call them, but they are a station of a sort. More like my brain is really taking a dump right now. I think they were I'll have to look up on the rail fans thing. There's a website that I go off of, but they'd have the rail lines would have a passenger station. They'd also have a station for cargo station. It was called something else, but I'll have to put that up and see if that actually is the old depot for that, because they'd usually have them reasonably near each other, but yeah, I'm assuming that's a United Methodist Church. Part of it was built in like 1905. It was actually a pretty impressive structure. Let me get this back in because it doesn't want to stay in. And then we're going to make a left here and go back up, and that way we go through the center of town, and you guys get to see the village green and the gazebo. It's a shame so many of the old storefronts. There's the Millersburg Ferry, Pennsylvania historic marker. We stopped at that earlier. This is Market Street through town. Old Moose Lodge, parked there earlier. But it's just like the original town. You see how beautiful the structures are, the architecture and stuff like that. There's also a really cool restaurant here called the Wooden Nickel, which I think I still have them somewhere. Old hardware store, and that's the Wooden Nickel. So I just keep on going here, and then we're going to turn left. Here's the village green, and there's the gazebo at the center of town, and we're going to be going on 209. This is how they used to always be, the village squares. You can just see some of the cool buildings and the architecture and whatnot. But now we'll be heading out of Millersburg. We used to have some of those old shops there. There was a cool, like a hobby shop. And we used to go there every single time we came to Millersburg because I used to love doing models and all that. That is a pretty little church. Go ahead. And but that's a pretty church there. But anyways, they had these hobby shops and like unique, like how the towns used to be. You had your mom and pop shops all along the main street, and that's, we used to stop every single time. I used to love it because I used to put together like car models. I used to also love like the balsa wood planes. Those things I thought were like the coolest thing ever. And yeah, those were, we used to get those there, and get the old biplane type things, and sort of like we used to go to Gettysburg a lot, and my dad was big into the Civil War, and then we'd visit mom's, you know, hometown. We'd be at Pine Grove usually a couple times a month to visit grandpa, and those were really, really good memories. And that was just one of those things I always sort of looked forward to as a kid. But so much of that stuff is all gone now. As we used to go by my mom's old house, and then that eventually apparently got torn down. I'd like to go drive around it a lot more and try to find out where, for instance, my great uncle Harvey Goodling was the Harvey Davidson authorized dealer in Millersburg. I'd like to know where that was. I'd like to know where the Miller Dairy was, and all that kind of stuff, because it's just such cool memories that my mom used to tell us about, and it'd just be neat to see where these places were that were so important to her in her youth and her adventures. And one of the funny stories to tell you about, which wasn't funny and her mom was quite angry about it, but Jim and her older brother Jim, which was the middle brother, and Art was her oldest brother, Jim and her used to go out in this little dingy boat that they had, and they'd go fishing. And the mom really didn't like them. Helen did not like them fishing along the stone wall there for the ferry, because the water was just more dangerous, a little more rapid, a lot deeper. But that's where they went fishing. And Jim had just bought this lure. And I still have that to this day. And it's something I always cherish of Jim's. And apparently he let my mom fish with it, and she somehow caught it on the wall. Well, he made her get out of the boat and go up to the wall and get his lure. And boy, was her mom not happy about that. And Jim never did that again. But it was just sort of funny. It was one of those stories that, another good one too, is they, Jim and his friends, they built this sort of those race cars, like the downhill racers. And you just sort of let gravity do its thing, and they had the one hill. And they were supposed to signal somebody, because they had some brakes, but apparently not a whole lot. And anyways, as they were going on the hill, they were supposed to signal at each road whether they were supposed to brake or veer off or whatever if a car was coming. Well, the one kid didn't do his job, and there was a car coming, and she veered off the road to miss the car, wound out nailing this lady's tree, messed it up pretty good. Also was very fortunate she didn't hurt herself, but they thought this lady, she always offered the kids gum, chewing gum, and they all thought that she was, I think her name was Mabel, I believe, and they always thought that she was a witch, was the rumor, which was sort of funny, because you always had that sort of, here's a town witch or whatever. But she happened to hit this lady's tree, and she thought she was going to get turned into a toad or something. But you know, nothing happened. The lady was really, really nice about it. She was just one of those ladies that was a maiden her whole life and was a little weird. Yeah. So my mom never got turned into a toad, thank goodness. But I'm sure Dad would have loved her regardless. But anyways, but it was just another one of those fun stories that they had when they were kids in Millersburg, and just the little adventures that they would have. But yeah. I think the next town we'll wind up coming up on is Elizabethville. And apparently when my mom was playing basketball, Elizabethville and them did not like each other. Them and Halifax either. They didn't. Halifax is the other direction, but they were really, really rough on each other in basketball. That was nice. And they used to always love coming to play them. And I guess my mom's senior year, they got an invitation to play some of the Harrisburg teams, and they had been perfect, won every single game. And that's cool. It's an old 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s bus. Actually would have loved to have taken a picture of that, because it's just, I love when they have the chrome on them like that. Just so neat. I don't know if it was a Greyhound bus or not, but needless to say, a neat bus from that era of time. Classic. But the principal of the school wound out saying no to go and do that, and the girls all wanted to go play these Harrisburg schools because they wanted to prove themselves. And he said no, because he said it would be a shame to ruin a perfect season. So they never got the opportunity to try to play some of these really, really good teams from the Harrisburg regions, which would have been the much larger schools. Because I think even to this day, Millersburg, I think, it's either a single A or might be double A, but I think it's a single A school. And they had a couple teams here and there that were really good, but that was the time. It was funny. Usually everybody, they wouldn't come to the girls' game, but they would come to the guys' game. Well, actually, the people came early to come see the girls, and then would leave when the guys played, because they weren't really that good. But the girls were just so fantastic. My mom and her one cousin were the two top players on that team, and her cousin Jane. And they really, like I had said, I think it was another video, and it was in Oak Hill Cemetery. She would have been, in today's world, she'd be a Division I prospect, and she probably would have been a WNBA player and a star, just because of how good she was. And the thing that was different with her is she practiced with the boys, so she shot like the guys, and the overhead shot, which was not as common in women's basketball. And she would shoot from, she was deadly, I guess, from 10 or 12 feet, which was uncommon in that era of girls basketball. But still have her trophy, and someday I'll do a video on her and some of the pictures of her playing basketball. And Dad used to call her Champ, and she had a bunch of different nicknames in high school because of how good she was. But that was more of those stories from Millersburg. Definitely want to go back, and it was disappointing, because the main reason I came to Millersburg today was hoping to find my grandparents, my grandpa Elmer G. Walborn, and my grandmother Helen Koppenhaver Walborn, to find their gravesite. And I had gotten information from my cousin Doug on the section lot, and unfortunately the sections are alphabet. It's like A, and there's no rhyme or reason to how they have the sections. And in fact, it seems like it's mainly, there's a big lot in the area. That's what they go by. So you have like 15 different H's and all that kind of stuff, and it's just next to impossible to actually find what you're looking for. But this is Elizabethville. I'll have to stop at another time and do a hometown foundations on Elizabethville, because I just saw that they had one of those iron town signs that were put up in like the 30s and the 40s. Can't always find them, but they are around yet. It's just a matter of seeing which ones they are. I just wanted to get off the road. I'm going to stay off the road for the next guy, so I have a little bit more room to maneuver. I'm not making anybody mad. Okay. Now let's start up again. we'll go through into, I'd like to go into Tower City, but we might turn on and off again just because of what a long drive it is, and I don't want to make the country roads take me home video too long, because they get hard to tolerate after a certain point. But the Lutheran Church and then the UCC, or what we used to be Reformed, right next to each other. It's always, when I went through here the first time coming back to Millersburg, I saw it was a UCC church, and I was like, the next one's got to be Lutheran, because that's just sort of how it always worked. This is a cool building here in the square in Elizabethville. It had to be a hotel. Had to be. You can see it here on the right. It's just such a neat, like the architecture is just unbelievable. I just love the dome there and the tower. Just, I'll tell you, they made things really, really nice back then. And so many of these buildings, a lot of them are probably Civil War era, a little newer, like Victorian, a bunch of them. But now this stuff's all newer. It's probably in the early 1900s, but nonetheless, still very, very cool. We got coming up here, there's a nice big star, Captain America. I kid, but nonetheless, it's like the Captain America shield. Another, the Veterans Park right there. That's something I want to do at some point too, along my journeys, once I'm moving a lot better and actually map and plan my trips out a little bit better. This one was not planned. I just was sort of like, I'm not going to Millersburg. I'm not going to be able to drive here in a couple days, so I'm going to take advantage and go up. I'm glad I did. It was fun, but it's still one of those things, like I said, you go up, you have a specific reason, and you want to see, this is something I've been sort of looking forward to for a while, and you just can't. Like, I can't move the way I want. I explained that in the Oak Hill Cemetery video. It's frustrating because if I was full strength and my back wasn't a mess and all that kind of stuff, I would be, those are good memories, playing basketball in the driveway. But I would be walking up and down that cemetery until I found it. But I left plenty early to do it. I just don't have. I go so far, and then all of a sudden my back pinches, and that's it. It just sort of is what it is, and I gotta live within the realm of reality and just realize, and especially I can start telling, okay, I'm starting to get a little tired. It's time to quit. But still frustrating when you can't do what you want to do all the time, so you just sort of work with it and do the best that you can. But I really do enjoy going on these adventures with you guys and going through the valley here in between Millersburg and Tower City. It's about a 23-mile trip, I believe. You come through, like I said, you'll come through Likens first. There's a couple other towns through here that I'm not really sure what they are. I'm sure I can look on the map, or if I pay a little more better attention, see which ones are which, because they'll have some kind of town sign. Or that looks sort of cool. I wound up stopping, doing the Fort Halifax marker. So I went down to Halifax just quick. If I'd had more energy, I would have stopped by, because I want to do this video on my uncle, great uncle, Harvey Goodling, and I got all the pictures for that and some of the cool advertisements from back then as well, which is sort of neat. That's something I gotta check out sometime. They had the Henninger Farm covered bridge, but I don't want to do that today. I'm too tired. But that, we'll go back through. When we go back to Millersburg, I'll make sure to make a note. And normally I look at the maps and look at what's all there, and say, okay, this and this historically is in this area, and then map them out and say, this will be my first stop, that'll be my second stop. Sort of model that after Cliff, the way he does stuff, because that's why he's so efficient. This is the village of Loyalton. Wickanisco Creek, because I know we go through the village of Wickanisco as well. It's one of those small small towns. Littleton's a pretty decent size here. And it's one of these, I love going through these towns where, you know, Tower City's especially like that, where all the places are right up against the street. This has a little more separation, has a little more of a country feel. But I love those old coal towns that are like that, are just so neat. You going through and just think about what life was like for everybody, you know, before all that. And, you know, when, you know, these towns were, you know, before the Walmarts and the suburbia and all that kind of stuff. You know, these towns had everything. You had your general store, you had this, that, and the other thing, everything that you needed, and just so neat, the history. And just to be like, I just like to know, you know, what was it like back in like the 50s and all that. Who knows, but sometimes I think I was born in the wrong era, and I would have really enjoyed being back in the 50s. Probably would have wound up getting killed in the war, but this is the village of Big Run. Not quite sure why it's named that, but I'm sure there's a reason. I know after Likens, you have the town of, I think it's called Williamstown. That's in between that and Tower City, and I think there's also a village known as Sheridan, which is sort of, Sheridan and Tower City are all sort of together, and then there's another town a little further down, and then you have the village of Muir. I don't really know if that's named after John Muir or not, but that's where my Uncle Art and Aunt Althea are buried. You know, the little town of Orwin, then, right as you come up a Gold Mine Mountain and go over, I think it's Sharp Mountain and then Second Mountain. Yep, and there's the Welcome to Wiccanisco, which is up that way, founded in 1833. Just so many cool names. I'm thinking Wiccanisco is probably Native American. It just sounds like a lot of the creeks in the area are named after the original, either a subset of a tribe, or, you know, it has a specific name, like the Swatara Creek, because we feasted on eels, and it was such an important creek because it was a big food source for them through the time before white settlers came in. But just has such an appreciation. I love looking at the maps and seeing all the town names. And at some point, once I'm in a little bit better condition, and this is sort of a cool thing you don't see every day, there's a coal depot. So you guys can see, like, there's still an active coal works in the area. You can see all the coal there. Really impressive. And there's another one of the old, that's where you could drive up and then they drop it in the back of your truck. Underkoffler Coal Delivery Service, and we're coming up on Likens now. This is, I used to do a Family Dollar when I did my Family Dollar runs, and this is usually the last store that I would come and do, and this is now the town of Likens. And really could not stand it. Like, a lot of people were nice, but certain people weren't, and it's like, I'm doing the best I can. They cut us back. There's only so much that we can do with the time that they give us and everything. And oh, look at that old truck. I love the old 40s and 50s rounded off trucks. Also really like sort of like the 70s where they started to square them off, but almost looks like a mortar there to have sitting there. And there's the town sign there for Likens. That's cool. That's one thing that's nice with one of these adventures you go and sort of not planned. You start seeing things that, I want to come back and I want to film that and I want to film that, and so you're sort of like, okay, there's a couple places that I can stop. I know in here somewhere there is, Likens does have it was a rail depot. It was a big building. Cliff and I went through here and we were talking about, I was like, that looks like that's something either school related or railroad related, because, you know, like this building here, this is something they would have built like 1910, 1920. It has that same sort of that's just how they built things around that time period. A lot of the schools, especially in this area, we'll go by, I think, the Likens High School. I may even stop there to take some photos, because that was one of the adventures I went on with Cliff, where we went inside. It's sort of an abandoned high school, and I think there's a Pennsylvania historic marker there as well. But that was really, really neat. Like, I have the pictures of the sort of the auditorium windows that where the gymnasium was and that stuff, and it's just really sort of very unique, very neat looking building. It just sort of had that same type of architecture. And there it is, Family Dollar. Yeah. That's one of those stores I was more than happy to be done with and it was also the signal. It was the end of my day, and then I got to make the trip over Goldmine Mountain, which was a lot of great memories, and then go up through Greenpoint. So there was good memories with that that I really, really enjoyed. But I'm gonna quick get off here because this guy's starting to crowd me a little bit. But yep. Alright, so I'm gonna pause here for a second, and then we got 7 miles between here and Sheridan and Tower City. That way I give my arm a little bit of a break. Alright, so we're coming up on the town of Williamstown, established 1826. And that town is over there. There's actually, like, when we went by Likens, I noticed there was a town on the other side of, I don't know if it's the creek or the railroad tracks or whatever it is, but I'm assuming that was still Likens. But when you go up through this area, there's all kinds of towns through here, you know, and different towns service different coal mines, and some of them, the towns just, you know, they were company towns. They went away completely and to be heard from no more when the coal mine just stopped working, and those towns just went away and faded away into history as well. And then you had other towns that they still exist today, and I wouldn't necessarily always say thriving, but still doing reasonably well, and have found different industries and that type of stuff to continue on. Notice the small cemetery back there. Alright, so I gotta do more research, and when I go make a return trip and know there's like 10 or 12 things to film along the way. And then that also, when I start using a new camera fully again, that'll enable me as well to be able to do that kind of stuff. But we should be coming up here. We're not real far away from Sheridan and Tower City here coming up, probably in another mile or two. So I don't think there's a whole lot of difference lengthwise between Williamstown and Sheridan and Tower City. They're actually reasonably close together, but I want to watch when I go into Tower City if that high school's still standing, because that was one, it was quite the adventure going in there and checking things out, and that was well before I had my channel. But that might have even been one of the first times I actually filmed with Cliff. And there's Williams Valley High School. A lot of my family went there. And here we're coming up. We're now in Schuylkill County again. And I think we're going to wind up going to the other side of town, because that is where the Likens High School is. And see if that's still there, and I want to see if that historic marker, I know there's a historic marker on that side of town. I think he was a guy that was a big band leader. So this side of town sort of semi-known as Sheridan. because it'll say here Village of Sheridan, but the overall area is known as Tower City. We used to turn around to go park on this side of the street at my uncle's house. And I was right along this group of houses here. I'm gonna pull off here shortly because I got a guy sort of riding my backside again. People really like to do that. I'm going the speed limit and it's not good enough for them. So just go around, dude. Oh my. And I am just gonna wait because there's a guy pulling out over here and he's not gonna be paying attention to me. George Street, or who that's named after, some guy named George. I think it's right up here on the right. A lot of these houses were all sort of made the same. Yeah, that's right. Is it that right there? Yep, that's it right there. They used to have, like, we had the lights that you could light your house on fire and your tree, the big ones that got ridiculously hot and somehow didn't light your house on fire. They used to always have those outside on the rails. And I used to always love seeing those things. I'd actually love to get a set of those, but like the safe ones when I have a home again, because then I can reminisce, listen to my Christmas records and all that. But this is like what I'm talking about with these towns where everything's right on top of the street, and it just, you know, I think some of these places would have had shops underneath on the first floor, and then people lived on the second floor, and it's just very, very cool. Small town life and all that. I would have stopped, but you can't just walk right out in front of people like that. But you can see a lot of these places down here that they have the old shop windows yet and all that. So there was something there. That's a pretty old cemetery there. I think this is the Lutheran church here, and back there was the military marker, probably for World War II, and that would have been the Lutheran Church, St. Paul's, I believe. There's another Moose Lounge or Lodge. Well, we're going to go down to the village of Muir, but I do want to stop at that high school if it still exists, because I wouldn't be shocked. They were talking about for years tearing that down just because of how unstable. Oh, cool, they still have some of the Christmas light stuff up. They probably leave that up year round. Just sort of cool. This is one of those streets I used to love when you go through here during Christmas, all the lights up and stuff like that. It's just very traditional, sort of vintage, dated a little bit, but it's got that, I love it because it reminds me of my childhood and the great memories of coming through here when I was a kid. And this was one of those, it would have been a coal mining town. One of these roads to the right, I think there's a church right there, United Methodist Church, is where you turn right to go over Gold Mine Mountain. But like I said, we'll be going down to the village of Muir because I want to see if they have that. There used to be a Pennsylvania historic marker right there at the high school. Whether that's still there or if it's just out of commission for right now, because they have so many of them that they're cleaning up, as we've discussed. I go around looking for them and then they're not there, and it's like, well, that one's off to be cleaned and fixed up. We should be coming up here shortly if it's still there, and I am thinking it is no longer here. Nope, it's gone. They tore it down. This is where the old Likens High School used to be, right here, but that is now gone. They have torn that down completely, and I did not see the historic marker. I'll have to look up again and see exactly where it is, but I didn't see it anywhere along the road here. But there was a guy, he's from Tower City here, and he was a big band. I think it was the Glenn Miller Band. It might have been the Glenn Miller Band. It was one of those that he worked with that band. But yeah, it is what it is. We will go down to the village of Muir, and that'll be the end of our journey together on this Country Roads Take Me Home. Sort of sad that the high school isn't there anymore, because it's a really neat looking building, really bad shape, so it's not shocking that they tore it down, because they were talking about, I think this is Muir right here, actually, I just went right by. Yep, that was Muir. But they were talking about originally, like, hey, we can make it into a community center or something like they're doing with Shenandoah. They're doing the J.B. Cooper building and making it into, from the high school building, making it into a community center. It's going to take them a while to get it completely restored, but they're doing the best job that they can, and that's what they were talking about doing with the Likens High School, but unfortunately it had just fallen into way too much disrepair, so that would explain why I did not see it. Sort of sad about that, but they're only here for so long, and some of these buildings are gone forevermore. But anyway, so with that I'm gonna stop this one and say thanks for coming along, because we are going to actually go down to Tremont now and drive down that way and head home from there. But as always, I want to say thank you for coming with me on another trip from Millersburg to Tower City. A lot of memories between those towns, and as always, we'll see you all about town. Hey, I just want to say thank you for watching the video. If you could please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, that would be great. And we also have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a Patreon. There are ways of contacting us at thehometownhistorian@gmail.com, and also via mail at P.O. Box 143, Annville, Pennsylvania 17003. All that information is on the descriptions of each video, and also in the about for the channel. So thank you once again, and we'll see you all about town.